I'm Joe. He's Jim. Welcome to the Joe and Jim Show, otherwise known as Live at 5, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, set as we see it, and frankly as well. James, have you ever made a quick turn on a red light?
Yes, I have, but I've stopped first.
What do you mean you stopped first? A full stop?
A full stop.
Isn't that the way it's supposed to be?
Yes, it is.
Well, here's the situation. Here in Salem, of which you are now a resident, is that correct?
Yes.
How do you like it, by the way, up there at 45 Traders Way?
I like it a lot.
That's it? I mean, you know, your economy of words here. You know, you're more expressive. Folks, wait till we get him, roll him. He doesn't stop. So, you come to a full stop at a red light to make a right turn. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what you're
That's the
supposed
law.
to do. That's the law.
All right. Apparently, there's individuals who don't follow that precept. And the Ward 3 councilor, how do you pronounce her name, Jimmy? Patty Mosiello? The Ward 3 council in Salem? Because what she did was she put a motion before the entire council, and on an 8-2 vote, they decided that she wants to compile a list of traffic lights under the control of the Salem City Council. And you said you were surprised by that. Why?
Well, I got different feelings about it. I mean, it's just something that I really haven't got my hands around or grasp.
But you would agree, I mean, you're a citizen, and
Yeah.
you do a lot of walking. You walk your dog all the time.
Yes, I
If
do.
you'd have come to an intersection in which there's a red light, you would expect that person to be cognizant, come to full stop, so it wouldn't jeopardize you walking around, right?
Absolutely.
But here's the problem. That's not what's happening, apparently.
No, it's not.
So she puts, and I didn't realize this myself, and folks, if you know about it, good luck to you, that traffic lights in the city might not necessarily be controlled by the city. They might be on a state road, consequently come under the jurisdiction of the state. See my point?
I see your point, but I didn't know that.
Well, in Salem, apparently that's the case. I suspect it's the case throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that there are certain traffic lights that are controlled and a responsibility of the state, not of the city. For example, in Lynn, the Lynnway, the Lynn Shore Drive, that's state, not city. So the state police have jurisdiction, supersede their jurisdiction on that road rather than the Lynn Police Department. So I suspect that Salem is the same, that certain roads in Salem, that the state has more jurisdiction than the city. That's what she's trying to ascertain, right? So what happened is that her point is simply this, that people are not obeying the law. Like you said, they're not doing what you did. They don't come to a full stop.
Right.
And that endangers pedestrians.
Absolutely.
It's a safety issue. Okay. So there are, I guess the issue becomes how the odds, here's what's at odds. How do you balance pedestrian safety while simultaneously mitigating traffic congestion? That's the trick. You want to make sure that people are safe, and you want to make sure the traffic is flowing. Because as you and I both know, as we came down here, pretty busy. Salem's a pretty busy downtown.
Absolutely.
You know?
Ever since I got my driver's license, I've always maintained the fact that the pedestrian has the right of way.
Always.
Always.
Right.
So it's up to the people driving to be aware of that.
You know, the other thing I was thinking about, and I did not know this, thank you for Patrick Kennedy, who's doing our show here. I mentioned traffic cops like they used to have in the old days,
Right.
you know, and that would alleviate some of these problems. And in fact, they use traffic cops in October. Perhaps they should think about using traffic cops more often. What do you think of that idea? You know, it doesn't have to be at nighttime, you know, when there's no traffic.
Well, it could work.
Yeah.
Could work.
I mean, what they're trying to do is find out, should you ban or should you restrict? That's the issue. Keep things at, here's the three things. Ban it, restrict it, or leave it the way it is. Apparently, it's not going to be left the way it is.
No.
Okay?
Okay.
Now, the Ward 4 councilor, McLean, says, look, I can go along with this. Not a bad idea. I don't mind. Let's compile a list. But his quote is, he thinks it's a worthwhile starting point, getting the list, but he cautions. And I think he's got a point. He says, this feels like starting with a conclusion in mind. Your mind is, you want to find a justification to ban right turns. You're thinking of banning the right turns first, and you're trying to figure out getting the statistics through surveys and stuff to ban it. She turns around and she says, oh, really? This is Morciello. She says, she counted and critiqued him. She said, you know, Counselor, it's as if you're prioritizing, this is her language, vehicle throughput over pedestrian safety. So she's saying it's binary. You're more concerned about automobile, you know, being able to move through the city than you are about pedestrian safety. That's what she's suggesting.
I don't agree with that.
You don't think that's what so what he's saying is what?
That again, I say, the pedestrian should always be thought of as.
So she's
first.
saying that pedestrian safety is the number one issue. You fall on that side of the equation.
Pedestrian safety.
Is paramount.
I would think, yeah.
Okay. Because you're representing the Salem, you're a Salem citizen.
That's right.
So these folks out here, it's their city. It's their safety, that's the thing. See, what I'm trying to find is there a sweet spot between the two poles? Is it binary? Is it either or? Is it ban or not to ban? It's like Shakespearean. The real issue is there someplace in the middle? Now, here's what it comes down to, James. You automatically stop. That was ingrained in you. That's a habit, correct?
Basically, it's the law, too.
Well, you follow the law.
I follow the law.
Does everybody follow the law, James?
I wish they did.
But do they?
No.
Exactly. What makes people follow the law?
Well, if you,
If they don't feel like following it, what makes them follow it?
when they get penalized for not following it.
Very good, James. There was a guy named Dostoevsky who wrote a book, a novel called, you know, Crime and Punishment. If you commit a crime, there's got to be a punishment concurrent with
Absolutely.
it. Otherwise, you'll continue doing the crime, right?
Absolutely.
So, in effect, if people are speeding through and not stopping at a right turn on a red light, they should be heavily sanctioned, fined, penalized, and they should revoke their license. If, you know, warning, revoke license. Right?
I agree.
So if the price is high, what's going to happen to that behavior?
It's going to slow down, and it's not going to happen as frequently.
You had a mother called Philomena.
Yes.
She's an old school type of gal, you know.
Yes.
If you put your hand in a cookie jar and she said not to, what
I
happened?
wouldn't do it
Why?
because it hurts when she gets through.
So the key was, you learn early on, you don't put your hand in a cookie jar when she says not to, because the consequences aren't worth it.
Severe.
Well, if you apply that same principle to traffic lights, if you apply that same principle to all types of crimes, would you have the crime waves that we see in our inner cities across the United States today?
Ooh, wow. Right now, off the top of my head, I would say I think it would slow down.
Oh, no question, right? In other words, you can't have district attorneys who turn around and reduce felonies to misdemeanors.
That's right.
And expect to have a positive result from that,
That's
right?
right.
Now, I want to move on to another topic, and it has to do with the LGBTQ plus community. The city of Salem, the school committee, Salem officials came out very strong because apparently what happened, and I'm not crystal clear on it, but let me give you the generics. There were a group of kids from that community, and Salem has an organization called NAGLY. I guess you pronounce it Negley, and it's the North. It's a community of kids who are not binary. You know, they consider themselves either trans or you know, or gay or lesbian or bisexual or whatever. And, you know, and apparently they were at Wendy's having a bite, and a group of other kids who didn't particularly like their persuasion or lifestyle harassed them, and I guess they had a toy pistol and fired it at them and this and that. And frankly, in all fairness, and I applaud the Salem Police Department, because they turned around and they laid the lumber to these 4 kids. You know, they committed what they call a hate crime, civil rights violation, and this type of stuff. So they're not allowed, and these were teens, they're not allowing it to go by easily, which I think is a healthy thing, that part, right?
Yes.
Now, here is where I run some difficulties. So quick, the city of Salem and the school committee and other officials, they all issued statements, and I don't know if I have it right here, but if I do, I could read it. And if you don't, pick up the Salem Evening News. It does a wonderful job of printing it out. But effectively what they say is, we stand behind you, squarely behind you. We're not going to tolerate this type of hate toward any community. You're welcome, et cetera, which is a noble thought. I have no difficulty with that. But here, you remember that when we were kids, Jimmy, that they used to say, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me, you know. So if you yelled at some kid, and ha, 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 big deal, you know. But if you pick up a stick and a stone and you whacked them, you didn't call anybody any names, right?
Right.
That's my difficulty with these agencies or government agencies or whatever who yicky-yak. They immediately will write down, oh, this is terrible, hate, no, we can't, no. But they don't back it up.
I was just going to say, they don't do anything about it.
Exactly.
They talk about it.
Yeah.
That's
Where does
about
that
it.
get you?
Nowhere.
Right. So when people do that, if someone says hateful things or is discourteous to anybody, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with them, you got to lay the lumber. Now, here's the part that really gets me. And one of them, they talked about that they were opposed to legislation that is anti-LG, et cetera, community. And I'm saying, wait a second. If there's legislation that's being passed, they're the legislators, aren't they?
That's right.
How are they being? Why is this being passed? Where is it being passed?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you.
I don't either. But what I'm saying, see, if you want to prevent certain types of behaviors at any level and for any reason, whether it's stopping at a red traffic light, whether it's, you know, harassing and intimidating people from a different country to speak a different language that don't look like you, I mean, that's objectively, morally bad. It's wrong. There's no argument there.
That's right.
But you can't say, oh, you shouldn't do that. If your mother said, let me put it this way. Had your mother said to you, James, don't put your hand in the cookie jar. I'd like you not to put your hand in the cookie jar. Would that have had any persuasion to you?
No, I think you need the punishment.
What did she say? Don't.
Don't.
And if you do, what happened? There was a consequence.
Well, in Italian, she said you'd get a taccarada. In Italian.
Yeah, pa davvero.
There you go. But you know, talking about LGBTQ, when I lived on the Cape, which was just recently, I did a funeral for the chief of police of Truro.
You were in the funeral business, that's right. Yeah.
I did, part-time, after I retired. But we were talking, the chief and I, and I happened to talk to him about what's your feelings about Provincetown, the gay community, and what they do there? You know, his answer to me was, and I agree with him 100%. If you don't like it, don't go there.
That's simple.
That's simple.
Yeah. Folks, for full disclosure, your brother, who happens to be my cousin, came out many, many years ago before
That's right.
and was courageous, actually.
That's right.
So it isn't as if, and everybody, it's people out here. By the way, he's a hell of a nice kid.
He's
Done a
my
nice
brother.
job, huh?
He's my brother.
that's not the reason, Jimmy. He's
Why
got
not?
character.
He is. He's got a lot of talent, too.
Right. So, you know, things change, James. Things change. Now, we're going to move on to, this is kind of related, by the way. I like your Vietnam, what's that, U.S. Air Force? You were in Vietnam era, right?
No, oh, no. Just says U.S. Air Force.
Okay.
Veteran.
Well, you are. I was
am.
in a snowbank in Alaska, folks, for a couple of years. Guarding, this is when the Slim Pickens jumped on the bomb, right? Yippee-yi-yay, and Dr. Strangelove, you were there at that time, as a matter of fact.
I went in 1956.
So what happens is this, and I'm not familiar with it, but I asked you about it. Apparently a young man who was in the Air National Guard, is that correct?
Yes.
From
yeah.
Massachusetts.
Yep.
And they're grabbing him for giving away military secrets or something to that effect. Is that the way it
Leaking
goes?
military secrets, yes.
So, Representative Moulton lamented what Air National Guardsman Jack Teixeira is accused of having done.
Right.
This is background, folks.
Right.
What Teixeira is accused is not whistleblowing, said Representative Moulton, who, by the way, was a captain in the Marines.
That's
He's
right.
a military guy himself. He said, rather, speaking to about Teixeira, what he did, he said, it is a cowardly and extraordinary reckless criminal act, he added. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Furthermore, in a statement, Moulton was emphatic, quote, it directly threatens the lives of brave Americans who collect intelligence. It cuts off our means to collect vital intelligence in the future. It undermines our foreign policy, and it undermines our allies, and it emboldens our adversaries. That's a pretty powerful statement.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
You were in intelligence when you were in the Air Force, correct?
Yes, I was.
And
I had the same clearance as this kid had.
he did have a clearance, didn't he? I'm
I
glad
had-
you brought that up. So
I had
it
a
is.
top secret cryptographic clearance.
What does that mean?
It means I had access to top secret documents and top secret information.
Should we be a little more observant and a little more restrictive on who we allow these clearances to?
Absolutely. I'm surprised that he even had one, being in the Guard. I was in the active Air Force.
Okay.
I enlisted. This kid was a reserve, a Guard. Why did he need this kind of a clearance? Now, I don't know that answer, but that's what my question is.
So you think that we should be far more restrictive and narrow
Absolutely.
in the dissemination of that? You know, what we're finding out is that there's a lot of stuff happening that's coming out now that's frankly a little bit frightening. This is an aside. Let me drift a little bit, folks. Stream of consciousness. I happen to be dozing off, and all of a sudden, got a call that Elon Musk was going to be on the Tucker Carlson show. And I'm kind of fascinated by Elon Musk. I think he's an unusual guy, worth listening to. And he was talking about the dangers of artificial intelligence.
I saw that.
Did you see it?
Yes.
I'm glad you did. What did you think of that program?
It was interesting.
That's a great word, but go further than that.
Well, to me, in my opinion, as I also saw it on 60 Minutes
Okay.
about artificial.
Elon Musk or the
No,
issue?
this was
About artificial
about it,
intelligence.
right? AI. And as they went through it, I got scared of what could possibly happen.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really out there stuff.
You know who wrote about that in 1818? Over 200 years ago?
No.
A woman named Mary Shelley wrote a book. You remember Boris Karloff?
Oh, I remember Boris. Yes.
So she wrote a book called Frankenstein. So she was writing about the same stuff and giving the same warning 200 years ago as they are now.
Exactly.
Right?
Scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it is scary. And if you take a look at what Huxley and Orwell, 1984, Coma, all these people are predicting, the Terminator, that movie series, that's predictable.
That's right.
All right?
It's a good point. I like that. Yeah.
So And that's what Elon Musk was talking about. He wants to make sure that, in fact, he was talking about the guy from Google, Larry Page, has almost a monopoly on artificial intelligence.
This is what the show was about, Google.
Right.
And it was a gentleman from India, or an Indian background, and he was the scientist that they were talking to. And what he said, and it's not, the scary part is, it's not that far away.
No, it's right down. In fact, they have the potential now.
It's around the corner.
Yeah. I've seen robots from Boston Scientific that dance. That actually dance. Pa, 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 pa.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is incredible. And this is without putting in their brain. If once they develop sentiment, once they can imitate human emotions and the rest of it, they can do art, Jimmy. They're better artists than I am.
That's right.
And I'm a pretty good artist.
My question is that I really didn't get a full answer is, I'm pretty sure they can't think.
Oh, yes, they can.
Well,
that's the problem.
I don't think so. I listened to every word on that program, and I think that was said, can they, what's his name that was interviewing him, said, well, can they think? And I thought the answer was no. They do algorithms or some kind of science, but they can't do what the human brain does.
Well, yes. I'm saying they're going to go. Look, I wouldn't be too happy about thinking in human beings, because there's a lot of human beings that don't think, okay? So, don't.
You're right.
Believe me. So, when you were younger, both of us parents were in the bar business. So you were a bartender, I was a bartender. Actually, I never developed an appetite for alcohol all that much. But apparently, and particularly beer, but apparently there's a big dust-up on Bud Light. And this is kind of interrelated. Because what happened is that an individual who was a transvestite and has now spent a year as actually a female, trans from a male to female, and one of the VPs at Bud Light thought it would be a great idea to allow that individual to be a spokesperson or partner with, to broaden the brand of Bud Light. Now, let me just give you what happened thereafter. CNN, this goes to show the differential between news outlets. You've got to be leery. CNN could be devastating to your portfolio. I say that, not you, not anybody, me. CNN could be devastating for your portfolio. Why? Because their headline was this: Bud Light's inclusive ad campaigns are good for business. Experts say. Experts. I'm very leery of experts. Now, at the same time, the New York Post and the Fox News comes out and says this: Anheuser-Busch loses $6.6 billion in market share. The same thing came out with Anheuser-Busch sheds nearly $7 billion, Fox News, since that episode. Budweiser is going down the tubes. Kid Rock took a machine gun and started shooting the things. You remember? Did you see that?
Yep.
There were scenes where people were using big trucks to drive over Budweiser Light. In Tennessee, Honky Tonk USA, the guy that owns the bar said he can't sell a Bud Light if he wanted to. It was his #1 brand before. It's Jimmy, this is real. I went to my daughter's, time on Easter, and a whole bunch of people from all sides of our family and in-laws who enjoy a Bud Light. There was no Bud Lights. They were drinking Coors Light, every one of them. Why?
Well, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that people really relate what they drink to a commercial?
Yeah.
An ad?
In fact, I think the other guy that said it. You would not like to be at a bar today drinking a Bud Light and have someone drink it because they make an association.
That's right. That's where I was going with that.
Well, you're the one that brought that up, and I think that's a good point.
Yeah. There will be people that will make an association with what you're drinking, that Bud Light, and you.
Apparently, a lot of people, because they dropped $6 billion, $7 billion of market share. So I just think it was such a foolish move. This is not to denigrate any segment of our society, but the reality is this. is that if you're looking, you were a salesperson, James.
Yes, I was.
What we had to do is you had to identify market,
That's
and
right.
you zero your product in to satisfy that market. The market for Bud Light is gender specific. More men drink Bud Light than women. Sports guys. It's a different profile. So those gentlemen are not necessarily, they don't really, they feel intimidated by someone who would go from male to female. That's all I'm saying. They don't want that thought in their head. It's a psychological thing. And that means that the brand would automatically suffer. Anybody that you talked about thinking human beings, a thinking human being wasn't thinking when they decided to go on that ad campaign, I'll tell you that right now. And you know who's getting killed next? Nike, for the same reason.
Same reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you know, in case you didn't know, James, the plural of deer is what?
Actually, I didn't hear that.
Well, listen carefully now. The plural of deer is?
Deer.
Very good, James. The plural of fish?
Fish.
Did you know that woke is slang for the English word awoken?
Until I started seeing it on television, I didn't even know the word existed. Woke. I don't know what it is.
It's actually African-American slang, and it means that you're to be made aware of the injustices that, you know, blacks have had throughout American history.
Woke.
Woke, you're woke. You're awakened. You're enlightened to the idea now of...
Oh, it's a slang term.
Right. Yeah, it's slang. Well, you're just like, a mangiati. We had our own slang in our own community.
Right.
So, did you know that there are 100 pronouns?
No.
You do now.
I know it.
And without pronouns, you can't really write. Pronouns are the essence to writing well. And the problem is that a lot of people are perverting pronouns. They want to create their own pronouns. The he, she doesn't work anymore. Now, Italiano, see? Italiano, see?
Yeah.
All right. We say il, we have a feminine and masculine tense. So don't the Spanish. Almost every Indo-European languages in their speech patterns has female, male, right? We say he,
Right.
she, etc.
Right.
So think about that. And pronouns are critically important. We got a couple of minutes left, Jimmy. I'm going to run down this list, and then we're going to say goodbye to the Joe and Jim special. Grammatically, you know what language is the closest to Romanian?
Oh, I'd have to take a guess at that.
Yes.
Italian?
You're a great guesser, James. It's almost identical. When I was out in Michigan, a lot of Romanians, we could talk back and forth. Very, very close. Closer than Italian to Spanish. Now, Spanish, Portuguese, French are also very close to Romanian. They can pretty much understand one another. Grammatically, do you ever hear people go, between you and I? But it's not between you and I.
Between you and me?
Of course, because between is a preposition. Me is a prepositional phrase, object, takes an object. And the other one I love, grammatically, people, they go, are you smarter than me? It's not, are you smarter than me? It's, are you smarter than I? Because a verb understood, than I am. Got it? So you see a lot of folks who think that they're nose up in the air, how educated and polished they are. They don't know grammar. You know why? Because we don't teach grammar. We got to get back to that in our curriculum.
Absolutely.
Lastly,
Absolutely.
and for you folks out there, this is up to debate. There is no possessive pronoun for it, for it. The it apostrophe s is a subject and a verb. I don't know about that because I've used it. Like it's television is an it. It's got a nice picture, but that's actually a verb. It has a nice picture. You get what I mean?
Well, you must have got an A in English in school, didn't you?
Of course not. I couldn't. In fact, I didn't get an A in Italian when I took it in college. I took elementary Italian. You know who got the A? The Irish guy. On that note, folks, have a great week.